can Roger melt Lila's icy heart? Let's find out in Sweet Valley High number 9, Racing Hearts. Hi everyone, I'm Rosie Blythe. I'm the author of the Princess Guide to Life book series, and on this channel we talk about everything from royals to spirituality to books to dogs to everything in between. And today we're continuing my little mini series on Sweet Valley High, recapping all the books I have. We're only up to number 9, so if you haven't seen the previous books you might want to check those out. So this is the first book that does not have a Wakefield twin on the cover, which I think is quite momentous. And I guess that's quite an important point about the books, because if you just wrote about twins and like had their friends in the periphery, it wouldn't be as compelling as what we actually have, which is a whole community of characters, and we get to know them as we go along. And you guys know I like to try and match the covers if I can. I was looking at this going, I do not have anything like this. Then I remembered I actually have this kind of Christmassy jumper, and as it's Christmas time, I'm not quite sure when this video is going to go out, probably in the betwixt time between Christmas and New Year. So I hope if you're watching it then, I hope you have a lovely Christmas time. If you're watching it any other time, I hope you have a lovely day. So first page, we have the first outfit of the book, which is Jessica, who has borrowed her mother's chocolate brown suit with a cream colour blouse, which sounds like a lovely combination, doesn't it? And then a quick outfit switch, Jessica changes into blue running shorts and a matching tank top. So we have a quick recap of the last book, in which Bill Chase really liked Jessica and she just treated him like a servant, but then at the end, when it seemed like he was going to have a successful career and other girls were interested in him as well, Jessica made a play for him, which just failed miserably. Anyway, Jessica is on to the next thing, and she has decided that she wants to have a career in law because her father is this hotshot lawyer. It's not the easiest of careers to get into, is it? I mean, there's a lot of studying. I hear it's really hard. Kim Kardashian could confirm, I'm sure. Does this count as Wakefield worship? They go down to breakfast and the pancakes are being made, and it's mentioned that the batter, a special Wakefield family recipe. I mean, it's pancakes, like it's eggs and flour and milk. Maybe it's buttermilk and fancy things, but you know, some people are really precious about stuff like this. And like, if you compliment something they've made, they're like, oh yeah, it's a special secret family recipe, you can't have it. And you're like, I wasn't going to ask, I was just saying it was nice. I think the Wakefields might be a little bit like that. So then we are reintroduced to Lila Fowler. She's a recurring character. She's this rich, snobby girl Jessica's fairly close friends with, although I think she's closer with Cara in these early books anyway. So it starts raining. Jessica's wearing a yellow rain slicker. I don't think I even own a raincoat, and I live in Britain. Jessica is prepared for anything in California. And then we have a little Wakefield worship that Lila's like, oh, just because your hair is frizz-proof. Because of course Jessica Wakefield has frizz-proof hair. Like, yeah. So Lila is wearing the latest designer blouse and a pair of jeans that outlined every inch of her trimly shaped legs. She was the envy of many girls at Sweet Valley High. Even the rain hadn't hurt, adding a fullness to her wavy hair that Jessica could seldom achieve with her curling iron. Oh my goodness, Jessica is not perfect. When did this happen? So Jessica and Lila have this kind of frenemies vibe. They are good friends, but they love a bit of competition and they love to have a little bit of bitch and get one over on each other. So Lila is sort of giving Jessica a hard time about the fact that Bill Chase did not succumb to her charms and instead started going out with Dee Dee Gordon, another like nerdy girl. So anyway, Jessica and Lila have a conversation about the Bart dance, because there's always a dance at Sweet Valley High, every week I think it must be, at least once a week. And it's the Barton Ames Memorial Mile, a very prestigious interscholastic race. I've never heard anyone use that word. Informally known as the Bart. Roger Barrett trips over in front of them and they laugh because they're mean girls. And he fancies Lila, he's got a real big crush on her, so it's extra humiliating for him, which is a bit of a shame. And Lila calls him Bugs Bunny because he bugs her. And Jessica for some reason decides to take it upon herself to be like, oh, but why don't you just go out with him? He's got potential. And Lila's like, no way. Absolutely not. Never in a million years. And Roger is just friends with Olivia Davidson, so she kind of comforts him about this. And we know that Roger is poor, but he wants to try and keep this secret, even from his good friend Olivia. So Roger has a part-time job, as many hours as he can get, working as a janitor. And Olivia mentions that she also has a job. She works in a museum because she's really into art, and it pays for her clothes. And if you're familiar with these books, you know that Olivia has an offbeat sense of style, as it says. She's wearing a floral print skirt, It was so long it nearly covered her Chinese sandals, and she's got a long strip of faded silk tied loosely around her neck, so she's kind of got an interesting boho style. And then we jump to Bruce Patman, who is not a very nice boy. He's very much the Chuck Bass of the school, rich and enviable and gets all the girls, but he's not a good person. He's a jerk. So he's there, he's chatting with the guys, including Todd Wilkins, who is Elizabeth's boyfriend. And they're talking about who might win the Bart race. And Bruce seems to be the only person really in the running. And they're gossiping about the school sports coach and how his days there are numbered because the school board turned down his request for more money and he threatened to quit. So Jessica turns up at her dad's office. It says, Ned Wakefield had always hoped one of his children would take an interest in law, but never in his wildest dreams had he thought it would be Jessica. I don't really get why parents want their children to do the same job as them. It just it seems strange to me. Obviously there might be a genetic thing that if you're good at something, then your kids might be good at it. But let your kids do what they want. Don't be like, oh, I hope they turn into a little mini-me, because that's just ego, isn't it, Mr. Wakefield? So of course Jessica, being a naive 16-year-old, is expecting this to be a really glamorous job, working like a TV courtroom drama, but it's actually just photocopying files and stuff like that. And there's a very sweet dated reference here. She thought of Joyce Davenport, the public defender on Hill Street Blues. Now there was someone Jessica could admire. Glamorous, dedicated to her career, upholding the rights of others, yet still making time for romance. I don't think I've ever seen Hill Street Blues, but I know it's an old cop show. I'm sure that's very nostalgic for people who remember that show. So Jessica pretty much decides that this is going to be her first and last day at the office because it sucks working there. It's not at all what she expected. But then of course she sees a hot guy. He's over 6 feet tall, with wavy golden hair and smiling brown eyes. His name's Dennis, and he works part-time at his dad's ad agency across the hall from her father. And then there's a little casual sexism here when he's like, oh, how does it feel to be a working woman? Training for the secretarial life? Oh no, Jessica said, I'm planning to be a lawyer. Can you imagine a guy saying that now? He wouldn't survive the day, would he? That's just what I like, a girl with ambition. I hate girls who think planning ahead means picking out a new bathing suit to wear to the beach the next weekend, which is exactly what Jessica is like. But who says I hate girls? He's so oh, you're not like the other girls, isn't he? And Jessica's like, why haven't I seen you in Sweet Valley High? Oh, maybe you go to the college. He says, oh, I'm not in college. I go to El Caro, which is obviously another school. And this is significant. There's a little bit where he's kind of pauses before answering. So just tuck that away in the back of your mind. So a bunch of people at school show up at the track to watch everyone try out for the race. And Elizabeth, do-gooder of the school as always, suggests that Roger should run the race. He kind of dismisses it and she's like, you run out of here at breakneck speed every afternoon. I've seen you. You must be the fastest runner around. Which is does he literally run out of school? I guess he must do. And she points out that the prize is a scholarship to college, so he could really use that. And Olivia doesn't know everything about the circumstances of his life. He does live in poverty, but she can kind of tell from his clothes that he could use the money. So she's like, yeah, maybe you should listen to Elizabeth. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. But then, for some reason, Lila comes over and she's like, I think you should run, Roger. And she's all flirty. She's like, I bet you're faster than anyone in school. And when he's like, no, I'm not going to run in this race, she kind of does this whole oh, I'm very disappointed in you. Emotional blackmail. But the main reason that Roger thinks he can't run in this race is because the final is going to clash with his job and he can't take time off his work because he needs that money. So, which is a really classic case, isn't it, of when you are poor, you have to go for the short-term gain. You have to go for that, I'm going to get my pay packet this afternoon, rather than oh, but if I skip work and lose the money, I could get a scholarship to college. I mean, it's actually a really good example of how people stay trapped in poverty because they can't take that temporary loss to get the long-term gain. They just can't. Anyway, Roger agrees. Basically, Roger gives in to Lila's manipulations. He's like, oh, okay, I'll do it for you, kind of thing. But so he has to run and he's wearing faded army fatigue pants and a red t-shirt. At least he's wearing sneakers. But he's up against Bruce Patman, who we've already seen. He's wearing a brand new running shorts. Oh, sorry, I've just read this bit. His brand new, I did make a note, but I'd forgotten. His brand new red running shorts were short enough to expose nearly the entire length of his long muscled legs, while his white sleeveless t-shirt emphasised his sleek tanned arms. The women, I presume it was women, maybe it was men, but whoever was writing this, they were getting a little bit hot under the collar, weren't they, writing about these 16 and 17-year-olds. Oh no, Bruce is 18. That makes it better. It's then revealed to us, the readers, that Lila was just like basically taking the mickey. Just like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, convince him to run so that he makes a fool of himself. Jessica, Lila and Cara are all like, he's so stupid. And then Elizabeth gets the surprise because Todd is like another last minute entrant into the race. She didn't know who's entering, so she was like, oh, what's going on? Everyone knows his first love is always going to be basketball. So Bruce is being horrible to Roger because that's what he does, particularly to anyone who he perceives to be less than him. So he's a really thoroughly bad egg. So anyway, the race starts. Bruce looks like the clear winner to start with. But then Roger starts gaining ground and Roger wins the race. And Olivia's there and she feels as proud of Roger as any girlfriend. So we get a little hint as to her true feelings for Roger. And she wonders if winning the race will give him the confidence to ask her out. And Jessica now points out to Lila that she really should go out with him because whoever wins this race is going to be super popular. But then, of course, Lila runs over to congratulate Roger, gives him a hug, and he can't believe his luck because this is the girl he's had a big crush on for ages. So the coach is really thrilled to kind of discover this new talent. So he's like, right, we need to practice every day. You need to come down here and train. Roger goes over to his friend Olivia and she's like, yeah, congratulations, then walks off. And he just has no idea why. But of course it's because he let Lila be all over him and stuff. So he's a clueless boy, I'm afraid. He's just like, oh, that's weird. And for some reason, Roger doesn't just say to the coach, I can't do that because I work to make money for my family to survive. Like, you know, you'd think, even if you can't tell your peers in your class, you could tell your, you know, teachers. I don't know why he can't just be honest. So Roger set a new school record and Mr. Cooper calls him in and kind of points out, like, if someone from Sweet Valley wins this race, that will look really good for us, so don't let me down, kind of thing. He gifts him a new track suit to run in. And then Lila sees this guy from behind looking all smart in his new clothes. And she says, now there's a Class A bod. People don't say bod anymore, do they? It's like a real 80s expression. I like it though. And then she's like, good grief, it's Roger. And she realises, like, oh, actually, he is kind of cute. Anyway, Elizabeth and her friend Enid kind of grill Todd, like, why did you suddenly enter that race? Basically, he just wanted to annoy Bruce because he thought he was going to be the only fast runner in the contest. And he talks about the coach potentially having cancer, and that might be why he's going to leave. So again, Sweet Valley is a rumour mill. People just pass on stuff. They don't know if it's true or not. Anyway, Roger finally makes it over to see Olivia in the school cafeteria. They have a bit of an argument because he doesn't know why she's mad and she can't tell him it's because I like you and I don't want you to go out with Lila. But to be fair, you know, she knew that he had a crush on her. Like, why wouldn't he then, you know, take advantage of that when Lila does come up to him? Why wouldn't he be like, yeah, finally? Lila just comes over and kind of inserts herself in between them. So this is very reminiscent of the last book. Bill was the guy who really liked Jessica and she just kind of toyed with his emotions. And then there was another kind of nerdy girl who liked Bill, but Jessica would always get in between them. And then in the end, there's like success and she wants him, but he goes with the nerdy girl. So I don't want to spoil this one before we get to it, but it's exactly the same plot. I mean, there's a limit to how many plots you can have, but it seems strange to have two such similar stories in two consecutive books. Like, break it up a little bit. And then we flash to Jessica at her after-school job. So Jessica, being the sneaky girl that she is, kind of sabotages the copy machine so that she has an excuse to go across the hall and ask the business there if she can use theirs. So she has an excuse to speak to Dennis again. He asks her what she's doing after work and she's like, oh, what do you have in mind? How about I meet you at your office and we could finish this conversation? Yeah, I don't think many teenagers are this slick when they're making dates. You know, it's more like I'm shuffling like, oh, should we go to the arcade? Like, I don't know, maybe that's just my teens, I don't know. Jessica tells her dad that she's staying late at the office to do her homework because it's nice and quiet there. Like, he must be really stupid to believe that. Like, Jessica, really? And she tells Elizabeth that she's sorting out the office because it's just so disorganised. Elizabeth's like, really? Dad works in a messy office? That seems unlike him. And Elizabeth even says, like, is there a boy there that you like? And she's like, no, of course that's not what it is. But she and Dennis have been having a lovely time kissing. Says his kisses were as satisfying as Jessica could want and he was eager to please her. Though enough of a gentleman to realise when their passions were reaching the point beyond which they would no longer be able to control themselves. There will be no teen sex in this book or any of these books. So then we're back in the school and Jessica and Lila and Cara. Lila tells the girls that she is now determined that she is going to date Roger. But Roger is in trouble with the coach because he just hasn't shown up to practice, and the coach is like, come on, like, this is serious, you've got to do this. He just doesn't give him any explanation for why he doesn't show up, and it's very frustrating for the reader. Also though, you'd think a janitor job, surely that is the one job that you could do on flexi time. It's not like working in a shop where you'd have to cover a shift. It's like a job that you could be like, oh, would you mind if I came like at midnight to do it or whatever? Like, it's kind of a weird job to be like really inflexible about. So Lila presents Roger with a poem, and I'm just going to read it to you if you can bear with me, because I find it so cringy when people read poems, but I'll be quick. Roger Barrett, a boy so fine, his speedy running is so divine. In school too, he's very smart, he'll walk away with the trophy at the Bart. In everything he operates at the highest stratum. We at Sweet Valley are so proud we have him. So apparently Lila has tried to get this in the school newspaper, but Olivia, who is the arts editor, vetoed that. And it says, Roger was glad Olivia had had the good sense to save Lila the humiliation of having it published. The poem was awful. I mean, it's not terrible, is it? I mean, it kind of rhymes. I've read worse in publications. So we have, I guess this is the comic relief storyline. Elizabeth goes to the office to find out what Jessica is really up to, and she discovers that Jessica is just snogging Dennis every day, so of course it was a boy. And then we have a little snippet of information where Jessica's like, oh, would you mind driving me home, Dennis? And Dennis is like, oh, what are the chances? My car is in the shop today. And so she says, oh, okay, we can just take the bus together. But then Elizabeth is witness to Jessica seeing Roger Barrett in his janitor job. So she's like, oh crap, I knew about this from a previous book, but I know he doesn't want anyone else to know, and Jessica is a big gossip. So when Jessica gets home from work, Elizabeth confronts her. She tells her that she knows about the boy that Jessica's seeing, but she also says, look, you can't tell anyone about Roger being the janitor. And Jessica promises to keep her mouth shut. But we all know what a Jessica Wakefield promise is worth, don't we? It's worth nothing. Lila is now determined that she wants to be the girl on Roger's arm at the Bart dance. And Jessica is like, hee. She'd never want to be with him if she knew that he worked for a living. Oh, how embarrassing. And she's also planning that she's going to humiliate Lila and Roger, but you know, she actually wants to hurt Lila by letting slip that Roger has a job as a janitor. So as always, Jessica is actually quite evil. So Roger confesses to Olivia and confides in her that he's really, really poor, he's really hard up, and he works as a janitor, and he's really embarrassed and didn't want anyone to know. And she's like, Roger, that's ridiculous. She's just like, no one who is your friend is going to laugh at you about that. No decent person is going to be mean. He's just like, oh, well, it's unfortunate I can't run in the race because I know without asking that my boss won't give me the time off. I do think that's a bit silly because it's like, it doesn't hurt to ask. You know, if you ask in a polite way, no one's going to like take offence at you just saying, can I have an afternoon off for this thing that might get me a college scholarship? That would be pretty unreasonable, wouldn't it? Anyway, Elizabeth talks to Roger and he says, I'm going to just drop out of this race because I can't get the time off. And he claims like, oh, I was just running for, it wasn't just an ego thing. I wanted to just see if I could be the fastest. It's not important to me or anything. And Elizabeth knows that her father is going to plead Roger's case with Mr. Pendergast, who is, I guess, the boss of the cleaning crew or whatever, because Elizabeth's father works in the office building, so I guess he does. So I guess he probably employs Mr. Pendergast. Anyway, Roger runs into Lila, and he's taking his new tracksuit back to the coach. And she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, how important is it to you that I run this race? And she's like, well, I'm not going to answer that because of course you're going to, right? I can't think of a single reason why you wouldn't run. So he drops a truth bomb. He says, actually, I work in an office building every day from 3 to 9, and all day Saturday you'll find me there, making sure that all the waste paper baskets are empty and all the floors are shining. Lila couldn't hide the feeling of disgust that began to run through her. You're the cleaning boy. I prefer the term janitor. He wants to be a doctor and he says, if it takes missing the Bart, it's a sacrifice I'm prepared to make. I mean, he's not thinking long term, is he? You need a scholarship to go to college. He says, I don't need the prestige that comes from running the race, but I do need the money for my job. And he can see she's just like fading out. She's not going to be seen with a guy like him from now on. So he goes to Coach Schultz. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Schultz. And he says, I can't run in the race. And he says, I have this job that I cannot afford to lose. And the coach already knows about it. He's like, oh yeah, Mr. Pendergast. Yeah, I've been speaking to him. And he informs Roger that Mr. Pendergast has given him the time off. He's giving him an hour off every day so that he can train, and the day of the race he can do that. And then Roger brings up the rumour that the coach is going to leave. And the coach is like, no, I'm not. And it turns out he's not ill at all. He's absolutely fine. It was just the rumour mill getting out of hand, as always, at Sweet Valley High. So of course it was down to Elizabeth's interference that Roger's boss has let him have the time off, because Elizabeth has to be inserted into these little stories, doesn't she, about other people in the school. If it's a story about someone other than a Wakefield twin, then Elizabeth will have a hand in the most pivotal moment of their life. So Roger runs to go and thank Elizabeth because he has a hunch that that's how it all happened. And she says, actually, you need to thank Olivia, because if it wasn't for her talking to me about it, I wouldn't have known that that was the problem. So we have another little moment of romance. Elizabeth hints, like, I think she really cares about you. So when Olivia comes over and he thanks her, it says Roger throws Elizabeth a "yes, I see you're right" look. "How could I have missed it?" he asked. "Missed what?" Olivia countered. "The love in your eyes." Can you imagine a 16-year-old boy saying that? Can you? Maybe they do. Maybe that's how they talk. But I think my school experience was quite different from Sweet Valley High. So Olivia, very wisely, says, why don't you just keep it secret that you're actually running? Because you've told Lila that you're not. She will spread that gossip everywhere, and that will put everyone on the back foot when you do show up. Anyway, back to Jessica. She has been dropping hints to Dennis about the Bart dance, but he's not picking up on it, so he hasn't asked her out. He doesn't want to take her anywhere, and she's like, is there another girl? Is that why you don't want to be seen out with me? And then he's like, actually, I don't have a car, I don't have a driver's license, and I'm only 15. And she's like, oh, I really like this guy, but I can't be seen with someone who's not old enough to drive. Later on, Elizabeth's telling Todd about it, and she explains Jessica did really like him, but she hasn't had the best of luck with guys lately, and she feels a lot of people around here might conclude she was so desperate for someone that she settled for a younger guy. Imagine how humiliated she'd feel chauffeuring him around everywhere. So, I mean, it's a year's difference. I guess when you're a teenager, that is a big difference. But it's strange that Jessica does not have the confidence to be like, screw everyone, I'm just going to date whoever I want. I don't care what they say about me. She actually does really have a lot of insecurities about how she's seen in her reputation. And then Todd makes his best joke ever, because Elizabeth says, it's a shame though, I think if that had happened to me, I would have said the heck with what anyone says and gone out with him anyway. Thank you, Elizabeth. And then Todd says, I'll keep that in mind the next time I see you snuggling up to a 9th grader. That's the funniest line Todd ever says. He's not known for his wisecracks, is he, Todd? I thought that was good. So the day of the race comes, and Roger is there in a brand new pair of red running shorts with a white high school tank top, and he's slender and handsome. And Lila is like, oh, he must have been pretending to drop out to shock everyone, and she wants him back. And Bruce has a kind of grudging admiration for Roger. He kind of respects the running, even if he doesn't respect Roger himself. Anyway, during the race, Bruce falls, but he gets up again, because it's that Bruce Patman spirit. And actually, I think that's pretty cool. You know, don't just lie on the ground because you've fallen down and you know you're not going to win. Get up anyway and finish the race. That is actually a good attitude to have, I think. But yeah, so take a wild guess as to who you think might win this race. Do you think it is Roger? Yeah, you're right, it's Roger. So Lila runs up, and it says that she made a great display of kissing him full and hard on the lips, and he's just like, no thank you, because he knows now, the friend who saw his value when he seemed to have no value. Very different from Lila, who's only interested when he has something that she considers worthwhile. So he runs over to Olivia and they have a little kiss. So everything's right with the world. Everyone's with the person they're meant to be with. And then we have a little teaser for the next book. Annie Whitman comes over. She's the year below Jessica and Elizabeth. She's very sexy, it says. So she's only 15, but she's sexy. And she is very keen to speak to Jessica about being on the cheerleading squad. And she's like, oh, Annie's easy. I don't want her on my squad. And Elizabeth's like, oh, of course you'll have to have her if she's good, won't you? And we'll find out in the next book, won't we? There's not a standout Jessica or Elizabeth moment in this, but I think the most Jessica moment is Dennis says to Jessica, I realised you'd dump me if I told you the truth, so I kept my mouth shut. I figured if I could hide my age until I got my learner's permit, it might make a difference. If it still matters to you, he added hopefully, I start driver's ed in 2 months. And Jessica does like him, but what would everyone say when they found out her date wasn't even old enough to drive? She could just picture the look on Lila's face. So she says it's too late for true confessions. I think this is the most Jessica moment because she's letting what her friend would think of her make her decision for her. Why would you let your friend or your frenemy even, she's not even that close with Lila, why would you let her dictate her life to her? That's weird, but I think it's a very Jessica thing. I think the most Elizabeth moment comes right at the end because Jessica points out that Annie goes on too many dates. And that's why she shouldn't be on the cheerleading squad. And Elizabeth says, But if she knows all the cheers and does them well, you've got to take her, don't you? Which isn't very good English, actually. So Elizabeth still has a touching belief that her sister is going to be in any way fair to someone that she doesn't like. Poor, stupid, naive Elizabeth. So that was it for Racing Hearts. I hope that you'll join me for the next book, in which we will find out if Jessica is willing to give a fair shot to a beautiful, sexy girl who goes on as many dates as Jessica does. I don't like her chances. I hope you join me then. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Thank you for liking the video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Bye.